In the vast and storied land of Egypt, where the desert sands meet the fertile ribbon of the Nile, there exists a city unlike any other. This is Aswan. It is a city defined by its unique geography. Here, the serene flow of the mighty Nile is dramatically interrupted. Great, dark knuckles of granite rise from the riverbed, forming the infamous First Cataract. These rapids made further navigation by boat impossible, forcing river travellers to pause and unload. They had to engage with this formidable frontier town. Aswan was, in essence, the final stop on the line. This reality shaped Aswan's dual identity, a high-security border post and a bustling cosmopolitan hub of commerce. As the last major settlement before Nubia, known to the Egyptians as Kush, Aswan stood as a fortress, teeming with soldiers, officials and spies, guarding the kingdom. Yet that barrier also made it prosperous. Boats heading north with exotic African goods, and south with Egyptian grain and crafts, had to stop here. The pause turned Aswan into a vibrant marketplace of cultures, languages and fortunes, made, exchanged and sometimes lost. But Aswan's importance ran deeper than trade and security. It was steeped in spiritual meaning, a landscape where stones and waters were sacred. The same granite that formed the cataract supplied Egypt's greatest monuments. Stone that built the pyramids, carved statues of gods and kings, and raised the towering obelisks. The quarries were the engine room of pharaonic ambition, and Aswan's masons were legendary, proof of human ingenuity against the hardest stone. In this series we embark on a scholarly journey through Aswan. We will explore it as more than a map point, a dynamic crossroads of history. We will examine its role as a frontier fortress, a centre of immense wealth, and a sacred landscape where science and religion met. We will walk ancient quarries, decipher temple secrets, and see how people harness the Nile. This is the story of Aswan, granite power, divine mystery, and the enduring spirit of civilization on the edge of an empire. At dawn, the Nile gathers its light and purpose. Here in Aswan, our inquiry traces three interwoven threads: stone, water, and belief, each shaping a frontier where empires tested their power and people defined their lives. First, stone, the great granite quarries, shelves of pink and black rock, the very substance that built Egypt's monuments and ambitions. We study the unfinished obelisk like detectives, running our gaze from close grain to sweeping form, reading tool marks etched by ancient hands, learning method from their precise, patient craft. The work demanded immense labour and astonishing skill, chisels, wedges and rhythm, until a fatal crack travelled through the stone, and the enterprise fell silent. Second, water, the Nile, lifeblood of Egypt. In Aswan, its moods were watched with unique intensity, for the fortunes of the kingdom rode upon its rise and fall. On Elephantine Island, stone steps descend to the river. The Nilometer. Carved markers leading downward to knowledge measured in cubits and currents. Each numeral told a future. The flood's height predicted harvest. The harvest foretold abundance or scarcity, and from that, the state set its taxes. Measurement became policy. Here, priestly science and state administration merged, temples and scribes, records and decrees, a bureaucracy calibrated to the breathing of the river. Third, belief. Aswan was a sacred landscape. Egyptians imagined the Nile springing from a hidden cavern beneath Elephantine, guarded by Khnum, the ram-headed creator who shaped life upon his potter's wheel. Pilgrims crossed water to Elephantine and to Philae's colonnades, where ritual and myth affirmed identity, creation retold in stone and sunlight. Aswan is also the heartland of Nubian culture. Colour-washed homes, music and dance, language and memory, a living heritage resilient through change. In the 20th century, modern power confronted ancient waters. The Aswan High Dam rose, and behind it spread Lake Nasser, an engineering scale hard to fathom. The rising lake triggered a UNESCO rescue. Temples numbered and lifted, blocks craned and carried, history saved even as places were lost, a complex legacy of progress and sorrow, echoing pharaonic ambitions to command the Nile. Stone, water, belief. In Aswan, they converge. As golden light settles on the river, we pause and prepare to follow these currents deeper into the story. To the ancient Egyptians, the Nile ordered the world, a living axis of time and place. Their civilization ran as a thin, fertile ribbon through vast, intimidating deserts, and its beating heart here gathered light and meaning from the river. Swenet, the city we now call Aswan, stood at the southern edge of certainty. For most of Egypt's long history, this was the end of the known world, the final bastion of the pharaoh's domain, where desert met river and imagination met reality. The threshold was physical as well as mental. Smooth, navigable waters gave way to granite islets and churning rapids, the first cataract, where dark stone rose like knuckles from the riverbed, changing the river's very character. Here, navigation faltered and symbolism deepened. Boats edged past the turbulence. Travellers paused, unloaded, and reckoned with a boundary that impeded passage and defined identity. That pause made a city. Markets thrummed, boats loaded and unloaded, languages mingled in the alleys and on the quays. Aswan became vibrant and cosmopolitan, and always faintly on edge. Officials and soldiers, merchants and Nubian traders, mercenaries and diplomats. A frontier caste moving through sunlight and shadow, their dealings measured, watched, recorded. The frontier role was administrative and a logistical necessity. Aswan functioned as the pharaoh's southern customs house and immigration office, a meticulously managed gate where movement was checked and identity confirmed. Every ounce of grain and every piece of pottery bound south, every tusk of ivory, every block of ebony, every gram of gold coming north. All of it stopped here, listed, assessed, registered, taxed. Scribes tallied values, marks were struck and seals impressed. In orderly script and measured numbers, policy met the river. Bureaucracy calibrated to a breathing landscape. Thus Aswan stood as a liminal space, the threshold between the two lands and Nubia, and as a carefully managed gateway controlling people and wealth. As dusk settles on the river, we see a city defined by stone and water, and by the ledger. The impending creation of Lake Nasser threatened to drown a vast stretch of Nubia, a treasure house of the ancient world. Temples, fortresses, and countless smaller sites lay in the path of rising water lines, and with them irreplaceable chapters of human history. Confronted by this looming loss, Egypt and Sudan appealed to the international community. That call produced an extraordinary response, the UNESCO Nubia campaign, launched in 1960, a moment when the world resolved to act. Archaeologists and engineers assembled alongside fundraising teams from over 50 countries. In conference halls and desert camps alike, a race against time began. a coordinated global effort of rare ambition and solidarity. The first objective was clear: survey, excavate and record before the waters rose. Across dunes and riverbanks, teams paced grids, logged finds and mapped landscapes, preserving data that would soon lie beneath the lake. They uncovered forgotten settlements, documented exquisite panels of rock art, and opened ancient cemeteries, a wealth of evidence carefully drawn, photographed and catalogued. In salvaging knowledge, our understanding of Nubian history deepened. The second objective demanded engineering audacity: relocate great stone monuments. Cranes rose amid scaffolding. Plans were drawn for the careful disassembly and resurrection of sanctuaries long rooted in place. Foremost among them stood Abu Simbel, the Marquis Rescue. Engineers marked cut lines on sandstone, prepared to divide the complex into more than 1,000 blocks, some weighing up to 30 tons, each destined to be lifted to higher ground. Piece by massive piece, blocks were hoisted, transported and set with painstaking precision, a giant jigsaw puzzle returning to form. The original orientation and intent were preserved as the temple took shape anew. The miracle was repeated at other sites, notably at Philae, the temple of Isis, among colonnades and water. Each relocation balanced archaeology, architecture and reverence for sacred meaning. At Philae, a coffer dam enclosed the island. Water was pumped away, teams dismantled blocks and ferried them by barge to Agilkia. There, stone by stone, the complex was raised anew on safer ground. Landscaped to evoke its original setting, Philae on Agilkia became a testament to engineering and international solidarity. Priceless heritage was saved, yet the sacred landscape and the homes of the Nubian people were lost beneath Lake Nasser. Our journey through Aswan reveals layers of meaning: stone, water and belief, woven along the river where a frontier shaped history and identity. From the granite shelves of Aswan came Egypt's enduring faces, temples, statues and towering obelisks, cut by patient minds and disciplined hands. The unfinished obelisk still instructs us, mastery tempered by a flaw in the rock, its frozen surface a lesson in ambition, technique and respect for nature. On Elephantine, priests measured the Nile with sober care. The Nilometer turned water's breath into numbers, and numbers into policy that guided a kingdom. At Philae, devotion and beauty endured. Ritual beneath colonnades, where creation myths were retold in stone and sun, echoing across the water. Here, belief, observation and power converged, an inheritance as delicate as it is strong. In the 20th century, the High Dam rose and Lake Nasser spread, a new command of the river, vast in its promise and profound in its cost. In response, the world assembled. The UNESCO rescue lifted sanctuaries stone by stone, engineering joined to care, saving memory from the deep. Yet landscapes and homes were lost. The Nubian people carry a living heritage, language, music, colour-washed villages, resilient through change. Today, the hum of turbines echoes ancient ambitions to harness the Nile, linking the Pharaoh's age to our own. True preservation means more than saving stones. It honours the Nubian community whose memory and care renew this place. Aswan's lesson endures: balance power with wisdom and memory with progress. May we be worthy stewards, so these voices continue to speak to the world. The land of Punt was a mysterious and fabled place. It held great importance for the ancient Egyptians. Punt was renowned for its abundant riches and exotic goods. Our primary knowledge of this distant land comes from ancient Egyptian sources. These records describe Punt as a source of valuable materials. Egyptians revered Punt and actively sought trade with its people. The precise nature of Punt itself, beyond its valuable resources, remains somewhat elusive to modern historians. Nevertheless, Egyptians wrote about this special land for many centuries, indicating its enduring significance in their worldview and economy. References to Punt span a remarkably long period in Egyptian history. They appear from the Old Kingdom around 2500 BCE right through to the late period after 700 BCE. This long history demonstrates a sustained and significant relationship between Egypt and Punt. The earliest accounts of Punt are somewhat general. However, later records, particularly from the New Kingdom, become much more detailed and illustrative. This extended period of interaction highlights Punt's consistent importance to the Egyptian state. Punt held a position of immense importance in ancient Egypt's network of trade. This was primarily because Punt supplied a variety of valuable goods that Egypt could not easily produce domestically. Many of these items were essential for important religious rituals. They also served as potent symbols of wealth, status, and royal power. Punt was perceived by the Egyptians as a distant land of plenty, almost legendary in its richness. Its diverse resources were highly coveted by the Egyptian elite, especially the pharaohs and high officials. The rulers of Egypt took considerable pride in their ability to acquire these exotic items from such a remote location. Beyond the acquisition of physical goods, successful trade with Punt brought considerable prestige to Egypt. It served as a clear demonstration of the pharaoh's power, influence, and divine backing. Gold was one of the most precious commodities that Egypt sought from the land of Punt. In ancient Egyptian culture, gold held profound symbolic meaning. It was considered to be the very flesh of the gods. Gold symbolized eternity, indestructibility, and divine power. Punt was recognized as one of the important sources for this highly prized metal. Egyptian goldsmiths were exceptionally skilled artisans. They transformed raw gold into stunning jewelry, intricate death masks for pharaohs, and sacred cult objects for temples. The regular influx of gold from Punt would have significantly supported these elaborate crafts. It also substantially added to the royal treasury, bolstering the economic power of the Egyptian state. The uses of gold in ancient Egypt were widespread and deeply integrated into expressions of power and piety. Royal tombs, such as the famous tomb of Tutankhamun, were lavishly filled with golden artifacts. These items were intended to accompany the deceased pharaoh into the afterlife. Temples dedicated to the gods were often adorned with gold leaf and electrum. Egypt, dominated by desert and the Nile Valley, had few native sources of high-quality timber. Fine woods like ebony were highly prized imports from Punt. Artisans crafted luxurious furniture and intricate inlays from ebony. Ivory sourced from elephant tusks was another sought-after material. Talented artisans carved ivory into beautiful designs. One of the most enduring mysteries surrounding the land of Punt is its exact geographical location. Despite numerous Egyptian texts and depictions referencing Punt, its precise whereabouts remain unknown to this day. This question has been the subject of intense scholarly debate for well over a century. The ancient Egyptian records provide many valuable clues, such as lists of trade goods and depictions of the Puntites and their environment. However, these records do not include any precise maps or geographical coordinates as we understand them. This uncertainty significantly adds to Punt's mystique and allure. Discovering the definitive location of Punt would represent a major archaeological breakthrough. The ongoing search continues to fascinate historians and archaeologists worldwide. Many scholars currently favour a location for Punt in the Horn of Africa. This broad region includes parts of modern-day Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, and the eastern highlands of Ethiopia. The types of goods consistently exported from Punt, as listed in Egyptian records, strongly support this theory. Scholars have explored links between Punt and biblical lands like Ophir. Ophir is described in the Bible as a source of immense wealth. King Solomon received gold and precious items from Ophir. The exact location of Ophir remains debated among scholars. This makes any direct link between Punt and Ophir speculative. The ancient Egyptians primarily travelled to the land of Punt by sea. Most expeditions involved carefully planned maritime voyages. Ships would depart from Egyptian ports on the Red Sea coast and sail southwards. This was a challenging and often perilous journey for ancient mariners. They needed robust, seaworthy ships and highly skilled sailors who understood the winds and currents of the Red Sea. The Egyptians developed important Red Sea ports, such as Wadi el-Jarf in the Old Kingdom and later Mersa Gawasis during the Middle Kingdom. These ports served as crucial departure and arrival points for the Punt expeditions. Depending on Punt's precise location and the specific route taken, some overland travel might also have been involved at the final stages of the journey. The logistics and challenges of these expeditions to Punt were considerable. Queen Hatshepsut's expedition to the land of Punt stands as one of the most famous and well-documented trading ventures in ancient history. This remarkable voyage took place around the year 1493 BCE during the prosperous 18th dynasty of Egypt's new kingdom. Hatshepsut was one of ancient Egypt's most powerful and successful female pharaohs. The expedition to Punt was a major highlight and significant achievement of her long and influential reign. She ensured that this grand undertaking was commemorated in extraordinary detail. These detailed records have provided invaluable information for historians studying ancient trade, shipbuilding, and international relations. Her motivations for launching such an ambitious expedition were likely a combination of economic, religious, and political factors. The most detailed account of Hatshepsut's Punt expedition is found at her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, located on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes. The walls of this temple are adorned with extensive and beautifully carved reliefs, accompanied by hieroglyphic inscriptions. The ancient Egyptians often referred to the land of Punt by a special and evocative name, Tanetja. This ancient Egyptian phrase is generally translated as land of the god or God's land. This particular designation strongly suggests that Punt held a profound and special religious significance for the Egyptians. It was clearly perceived as much more than just a source of material wealth and exotic commodities. Punt was viewed as a sacred, pure, and perhaps even primordial place. This elevated Punt above the status of ordinary foreign lands in the Egyptian worldview. It imbued the distant land with a distinct mystical quality and a sense of divine connection. This name itself reflects the deep reverence they held for Punt. There are several reasons why the Egyptians may have called Punt Tanetja. Punt's influence extended far beyond trade, permeating Egyptian art and religion. It was depicted as a land of abundance and beauty. Wall carvings showcased Punt's rich resources and exotic allure. Art celebrated Punt as a utopian paradise. Religiously, Punt was God's land, a sacred place. Expeditions to Punt were sacred pilgrimages. Queen Hatshepsut's journey exemplified its significance. Her expedition was documented in Deir el-Bahari. The return brought goods and tales of divine favour. Punt's legacy echoes through Egyptian mythology and identity. Despite Punt's prominent role in ancient Egyptian society, its exact location remains one of history's enduring mysteries. Scholars and historians have long debated where this enigmatic land might have been situated. Various theories suggest locations ranging from the Horn of Africa to the Arabian Peninsula. Recent archaeological findings and modern research have provided new insights into this ancient puzzle. Discoveries of ancient Egyptian inscriptions and depictions of Puntite flora and fauna have pointed to regions along the Red Sea coast. Some scholars argue that Punt could be located in present-day Eritrea or Somalia. Analysis of ancient resin samples found in Egyptian tombs supports this theory. These resins match the botanical characteristics of trees native to the Horn of Africa. This has led many to support the theory that Punt was indeed located in this region. Recent underwater archaeological missions have uncovered remnants of ancient shipwrecks along the Red Sea. These findings suggest established maritime routes between Egypt and the Puntite lands. The debate, however, is far from settled. Some historians propose that Punt could have been a network of trade hubs rather than a single location. This theory aligns with the diverse array of products sourced from Punt, including gold, incense, ebony, and exotic animals. Each discovery brings us closer to understanding the true nature of this ancient land. The quest to pinpoint Punt's location is a testament to the enduring fascination and curiosity that this legendary land inspires in modern scholars and historians. The search for Punt is not just about finding a place on the map, it is about connecting the dots of history and piecing together the legacy of a civilization that once thrived on the exchanges between these distant lands. The story of Punt, much like the land itself, continues to captivate and intrigue, reminding us of the rich tapestry of human history waiting to be explored. Beneath the North African night, the Milky Way flows overhead, a celestial river that shaped the destiny of ancient Egypt. For Egyptians, the stars were more than distant lights. They were guides, gods, and the very clockwork of existence. Along the Nile, they looked to the sky to understand the rhythms of their world. Long before pyramids, Egyptians were astronomers tracking the moon, constellations, and the cycles of the heavens. The sky was a divine map, essential for survival, faith, and prosperity. Their observations predicted the Nile's floods, aligned monuments, and created a remarkably accurate calendar. The heavens offered order and the promise of renewal in a chaotic world. Join us as we journey from ancient stone circles to star-aligned temples, uncovering how practical needs evolved into a spiritual cosmology. The legacy of Egypt's stargazers endures in the way we understand our sky today. In ancient Egypt, science and religion were inseparable. The sky was home to gods, and celestial bodies their manifestations. The sun god Ra, the moon god Thoth, and the immortal stars shaped every aspect of life. Predicting the Nile's flood was vital, and the heliacal rising of Sirius or Sopdet became the cornerstone of their calendar. Egyptians created a 365-day calendar, organizing agriculture, festivals, and construction with cosmic precision. Astronomy was the engine of the state, the heart of religion, and the foundation of the economy. The pharaoh's authority depended on maintaining Maat, the cosmic order reflected in the heavens. From farmers to priests, all Egyptians lived by the rhythms of the stars. Understanding this connection unlocks the secrets of Egypt's enduring civilization. Egyptian astronomy began long before the pharaohs in the Green Sahara at Nabta Playa, where ancient people arranged stones to mirror the sky. These megaliths, predating Stonehenge, are among the world's oldest observatories. Over time, astronomical knowledge grew, culminating in the star-aligned pyramids of Giza, resurrection machines guiding pharaohs to the heavens. Temples like Karnak became cosmic instruments aligned to the solstice sun. Astronomy legitimized power and inspired awe. In Alexandria, Egyptian, Greek and Babylonian traditions merged, making it the scientific capital of the ancient world. Here, Ptolemy wrote the Almagest, shaping Western astronomy for centuries. Egypt's conversation with the stars left a legacy that endures to this day. To trace Egyptian astronomy's roots, we journey to a time when the Sahara was green and alive. Nomadic herders, guided by the stars, used the sky as compass and calendar. The sun, moon and constellations dictated migrations and survival. This was not formal science, but deep intuitive knowledge passed through generations. Celestial signals marked the coming rains and changing seasons. As the Sahara dried, these people migrated to the Nile, bringing their cattle, pottery, beliefs, and their astronomical wisdom. This knowledge, forged on the savannah, became foundational for Nile Valley civilization. The sky and earth were one, and understanding both was key to survival. The seeds of Egypt's greatness were sown by these early stargazers. Their legacy shaped the civilization that would rise along the Nile. In Egypt's western desert lies Nabta Playa, once a seasonal lake and gathering place for ancient nomads. Here, lines of standing stones form one of humanity's earliest astronomical instruments. The small stone circle, over 7,000 years old, marked the summer solstice and the arrival of monsoon rains. This celestial clock anchored their year and ensured survival. Larger megaliths align with the rising of stars like Sirius and Orion, creating a map of the night sky. Nabta Playa's alignments predate Stonehenge and the pyramids, revealing a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. These people organized to quarry and erect massive stones with astronomical precision. Nabta Playa is a silent monument to humanity's first astronomers. It shows our ancient desire to find order in the cosmos. Their achievements laid the groundwork for Egypt's later scientific wonders. Nabta Playa's stones were more than markers. They formed a complex system for tracking celestial cycles. Gates in the central circle aligned with the solstice sunrise, confirming the cosmic order and the coming rains. Beneath the sands, a reverently buried cow hints at the sacred link between cattle, the sky, and later Egyptian deities like Hathor. The alignments allowed for a reliable calendar, essential for planning migrations and rituals. This practical astronomy brought structure to their lives and shaped their future. The stones are evidence of abstract thinking and long-term pattern recognition. Nabta Playa's principles of alignment and calendar making were carried to the Nile Valley. There they evolved into the magnificent science of the pharaohs. The journey from desert stones to cosmic temples began here, under the ancient stars. The story of Nabta Playa and its stargazing inhabitants does not end in the desert. Around 3,800 BCE, the climate of North Africa shifted dramatically. The monsoons that had sustained the Green Sahara retreated south, and the land began its final transformation into the arid desert we know today. This profound environmental change forced a great migration. The cattle-herding peoples of the western oases packed up their belongings and moved east towards the one place where life could still flourish on a grand scale, the fertile, well-watered corridor of the Nile River Valley. This was a pivotal moment in human history. These migrants were not primitive hunter-gatherers. They were a people with a rich cultural and intellectual heritage. They brought with them their domesticated cattle, their sophisticated pottery techniques, and their complex social structures. Most importantly, they carried in their collective memory a deep and practical knowledge of the stars. This astronomical legacy, developed over countless generations in the open expanse of the savannah, would now be applied to a new environment with a different set of challenges and opportunities. The rhythm of life was no longer dictated by monsoon rains, but by the annual inundation of the great river. The astronomical skills honed at Nabta Playa proved to be perfectly adaptable. The need to predict the seasonal rains was replaced by the even more critical need to predict the Nile's flood. The ancient observers noticed that the flood arrived each year shortly after the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, reappeared at dawn. They applied their calendar-making skills to this new celestial event, creating the 365-day civil calendar that would become a hallmark of Egyptian civilization. The practice of aligning structures to the solstices and key stars, first seen in the desert stone circles, would evolve into the precise orientation of temples and pyramids. Thus, the prehistoric astronomy of the Sahara Desert did not vanish. It was transformed. It became the bedrock upon which the pharaonic state was built. The cattle cults of the desert may have evolved into the worship of celestial deities like Hathor and Nut. The chiefs who could interpret the heavens likely became the first priests and rulers. The legacy of Nabta Playa is therefore profound. It demonstrates that the origins of Egyptian civilization and its extraordinary astronomical achievements lie not just on the banks of the Nile, but in the deeper past of the African continent, among a forgotten people who first learned to read the secrets written in the stars. As cultures unified along the Nile, astronomical knowledge shaped their state. They needed a calendar to govern their agricultural society. Building on traditions, they created a calendar. The early Egyptians turned their gaze to the sun and the stars, seeking a more constant and predictable measure of time for their burgeoning civilization. They observed the solar year was approximately 365 days long. The year was divided into 12 months of 30 days, plus 5 extra days for deities' birthdays. This calendar was consistent, aiding officials in calculations. This system united Egypt under a predictable rhythm. The year reflected the Nile's agricultural cycle. The Egyptians knew their 365-day calendar was not perfect and would slowly drift out of sync with the seasons. They used the star Sirius, which they called Sopdet, to reliably signal the start of the Nile's annual flooding. The helical rising of Sirius almost perfectly coincided with the first signs of the Nile's waters beginning to swell. The star's reappearance was the true New Year's Day, announcing the season of inundation. Her rising was a moment of immense religious significance, celebrated with festivals and rituals. The careful tracking of Sopdet's rising allowed the Egyptians to understand the slow drift of their calendar. The northern celestial pole held profound significance for the ancient Egyptians. They looked north to stars that never set, circling endlessly. These circumpolar stars symbolized eternity. The Egyptians called them the Ikimusek, the unwearying ones, the celestial destiny of the pharaohs. The Great Pyramid was aligned to the North Star Thuban. A shaft pointed to Thuban, a pathway for the pharaoh's soul to join the imperishable stars. This mapping was critical to their understanding of the cosmos. The north was the realm of eternity. This celestial map gave the Egyptians a sense of place within a divine universe. Dynastic astronomy was about formulating a comprehensive worldview, explaining the universe and humanity's place within it. For the ancient Egyptians, the organizing principle of everything was Maat, embodying truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. Maat was the divine force that kept the universe functioning correctly. It ensured the sun would rise, the Nile would flood, and the stars would remain in their courses. The pharaoh was the earthly guarantor of Maat. His primary duty was to maintain this divine order. The daily journey of the sun god Ra across the sky, the monthly phases of the moon, and the annual return of Sopdet were all powerful demonstrations that the cosmic order was being upheld. Therefore, the study of astronomy was a sacred duty. This worldview is beautifully illustrated in their artistic representations of the cosmos. The sky was often depicted as the goddess Nut, her body arched over the earth, covered in stars. The earth itself was personified by the god Geb. It was a universe that was alive, a celestial family of gods whose actions created the world the Egyptians experienced every day. In the New Kingdom, temple complexes became models of the cosmos. These temples were astronomical instruments designed to capture sunlight at key moments, creating dramatic light and shadow. The Karnak temple complex exemplifies this, with its core design aligned astronomically. Its main axis aligns with the winter solstice sunrise. On this day, sunlight penetrates the gateway. It travels through halls to illuminate the inner sanctum. This event was powerful religious theatre, demonstrating the presence of the gods. The temples were dynamic machines, revealing a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. The Egyptian practice of celestial alignment was not confined to individual buildings. They thought on a much grander scale. They envisioned the entire landscape of Egypt as a sacred canvas upon which a reflection of the heavens could be drawn. The pyramids and temples were not isolated structures, but were often part of a much larger, interconnected plan. The placement of monuments relative to one another and relative to natural features like the Nile River was often deliberate and carried deep cosmological meaning. They were attempting to create a terrestrial reflection of the celestial world, weaving heaven and earth together into a single, unified whole. One of the most compelling theories in this field is the Orion correlation theory. This hypothesis suggests that the layout of the three main pyramids on the Giza Plateau was intentionally designed to mirror the three stars in the belt of the constellation Orion. Not only does the arrangement of the pyramids match the arrangement of the stars, but the relative brightness of the stars seems to be reflected in the relative sizes of the pyramids. Furthermore, the Nile River, flowing alongside the Giza Plateau, corresponds to the position of the Milky Way, the celestial river, in the sky relative to the constellation of Orion. This creates a breathtakingly ambitious star map on the ground. This concept of as above, so below was central to the Egyptian worldview. By recreating the pattern of the stars on the land, they were anchoring the divine order of the heavens firmly in their own kingdom. The land of Egypt would thus become a living embodiment of Maat, a place of perfect cosmic harmony. This sacred geography reinforced the divine nature of the kingdom and the legitimacy of the pharaoh who ruled over it. Walking through this landscape was like walking through the cosmos itself, with every temple and pyramid serving as a gateway to a specific celestial region or divine power. Whether every alignment was intentional is still debated by scholars, but the evidence for large-scale celestial planning is undeniable. From the solstitial alignments of Karnak to the stellar shafts of Khufu's pyramid, it is clear that the ancient Egyptians possessed a sophisticated, three-dimensional understanding of astronomy. They applied this knowledge not just to tell time or predict floods, but to shape their entire world. They built a civilization that was not just located on the earth, but was a conscious and deliberate reflection of the heavens, a kingdom aligned with the eternal and majestic rhythms of the universe. Within the temples, priests dedicated their lives to the sky. The Imai Unut, or Hour Watchers, were keepers of celestial knowledge. From rooftops they scanned the stars, using star clocks to track the movement of decans. They watched for celestial events, meticulously recording observations to fix dates of festivals. The Hour Watchers ensured celebrations happened at auspicious moments. They interpreted the divine language of the stars, ensuring Egypt navigated time in harmony with the cosmos. The Egyptian fascination with the cosmos extended powerfully into the realm of the dead. The tomb was not simply a final resting place. It was a microcosm of the universe designed to ensure a successful journey in the afterlife. The walls and ceilings of tombs were often decorated with elaborate astronomical scenes. These were functional cosmic maps, celestial guidebooks for the soul. Walking into a tomb is like stepping into another universe. The ceilings are often painted a deep, dark blue, representing the night sky. Upon this celestial canvas are painted the constellations, depicted as gods and goddesses. These images provided a map, allowing the soul to navigate the darkness. They were a practical guide for the afterlife, but they also had a powerful magical function. By depicting the eternal nature of the cosmos, the Egyptians believed they could bestow that same immortality upon the deceased. The daily journey of the sun god Ra was a model for the pharaoh's own resurrection. These tomb paintings provide us with a direct window into the Egyptian understanding of the cosmos. The tomb became a sealed copy of the universe where the cycles of time would play out for eternity. The Temple of Hathor in Dendera features the renowned Dendera Zodiac, a magnificent map of the heavens created around 50 BCE. It represents a fusion of Egyptian astronomy with Greek and Babylonian ideas. The zodiac is a circular bas-relief featuring familiar constellations. It blends traditions, incorporating new knowledge while retaining its unique character. The disk depicts planets as gods sailing in celestial boats. It's a complex clock, calendar, and cosmological diagram. The Dendera zodiac encapsulates the journey of Egyptian stargazing. It reminds us that the sky was a vibrant realm, guiding them in life and death. Egyptian astronomy entered a brilliant final chapter. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great brought Egypt into the Greek world, founding Alexandria. It became the Hellenistic world's intellectual heart, a multicultural metropolis. Alexandria became a crucible where Egyptian wisdom was reforged with Greek cosmology. Egyptians brought vast observational data and star charts. The Greeks sought mathematical models of the cosmos. Babylonian astronomy added mathematical prowess. Scholars combined Egyptian, Greek, and Babylonian traditions. The Museum and Great Library was a research institute. Scholars like Eratosthenes and Hipparchus worked here. Alexandria amplified Egypt's legacy, preparing it for the future. In the 2nd century CE, long after Alexandria had passed from Greek to Roman rule, the city produced its most celebrated astronomer. His name was Claudius Ptolemy. Though he was a Roman citizen who wrote in Greek, he lived and worked in Alexandria, the inheritor of centuries of accumulated Egyptian, Greek, and Babylonian knowledge. Ptolemy was a polymath, writing on geography, astrology, and music, but his greatest contribution was his monumental work on astronomy. This book, originally called the Mathematical Treatise, would become known to posterity by its Arabic name, the Almagest, meaning the greatest. It was a title it thoroughly deserved. The Almagest was a comprehensive masterpiece. In its 13 books, Ptolemy gathered and synthesized all the astronomical knowledge of his time into a single coherent system. He presented a detailed mathematical model of the universe that could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets with remarkable accuracy for its time. His model was geocentric, placing a stationary Earth at the center of the cosmos. To explain the complex and sometimes backward or retrograde motions of the planets, he used an ingenious system of circles on circles, known as deferents and epicycles. It was a complex but workable model that accounted for what observers saw in the sky. Ptolemy's work was not just about theory, it was grounded in observation. He drew heavily on the star catalogue of his predecessor Hipparchus, refining it and adding to it. He included a list of over 1,000 stars organized into 48 constellations, many of which we still recognize today. The Almagest provided tables that allowed users to compute the positions of celestial bodies for any given date. It was a complete astronomical toolkit, a user's manual for the entire universe as it was then understood. Its combination of theoretical elegance and practical utility made it an indispensable text for any serious astronomer. The influence of the Almagest was immense and long-lasting. For more than 1,400 years, it was the foundational text for astronomy in the Byzantine, Islamic, and Western European worlds. It was copied, translated, and studied by generations of scholars. It so successfully explained the heavens that it became the undisputed authority, its geocentric model going largely unchallenged until the work of Copernicus in the 16th century. Ptolemy, working in Roman Egypt, had created the final, crowning achievement of ancient astronomy. His work stands as a powerful testament to the intellectual legacy of Alexandria, a city built on Egyptian soil and nurtured by its ancient tradition of looking to the stars. Ancient Egyptian astronomy, from prehistoric stone circles to Ptolemy's models, spans 5,000 years. One lasting gift is the 365-day calendar. Adopted by Julius Caesar, it evolved into the Gregorian calendar. The concept of dividing the day into 24 hours comes from the Egyptian system of tracking day and night. The idea of mapping the sky is a tradition that Egypt perfected. Meticulous records provided data for later Greek and Roman astronomers. The astronomical alignments of the pyramids continue to inspire awe. They remind us of a civilization seeking harmony between earthly existence and the cosmic order. The greatest legacy is the spirit of inquiry, finding meaning in the night sky. From the stones of Nabta Playa to the libraries of Alexandria, ancient Egyptian astronomy reveals humanity's quest for its place in the universe. Etched into Egypt's landscape, from star-aligned pyramids to sun-drenched temples, it wove together agriculture, religion and the state, guided by the stars. Their contributions echo today. Our calendar descends from their 365-day system. The 24-hour day has roots in temple hour watches. The cosmos, as an ordered place, was embodied in Maat, the divine order. This culminated in Ptolemy's Almagest, defining the Western universe for a millennium. Knowledge of the pharaohs became the foundation for the future. The light of Sopdet became a beacon of knowledge. When we look up, we see through ancient Egyptian eyes. Their cosmic perspective endures, connecting us to those first stargazers on the Nile. The ancient Egyptians are famous for many things. We remember their towering pyramids. We marvel at their golden treasures. We are fascinated by their strange animal-headed gods. But perhaps more than anything else, we are captivated by their intricate and profound beliefs about life after death. For the people along the banks of the mighty Nile thousands of years ago, death was not an end. It was a transition. A doorway to another existence, a journey to an eternal life they prepared for their whole lives. This belief was the very heart of their civilization, influencing everything they did. It shaped their society, starting with art, architecture and religious practices. The magnificent tombs were not just burial places, they were eternal homes, built to last for millennia. The elaborate rituals were not simple farewells, they were essential procedures to ensure safe passage and rebirth. From the pharaoh in his golden palace to the humble farmer in his mud brick house, every Egyptian shared the hope of life beyond the grave. To understand them, we must look at their relationship with death. They weren't obsessed with death. They were obsessed with life. Their preparations were an expression of love for life. They wanted their joys to continue forever. This desire for eternity unlocks their complex world, where living and dead often blurred. This is a journey back in time. Their ideas changed over thousands of years, growing more complex. We will explore the cosmos, their powerful gods, and the rise of writing. We will see the soul's perilous journey through the underworld and the final judgment. It is a story of hope, fear, and the human quest for immortality. In ancient Egypt, religion was not separate from daily life. It was woven into the very fabric of society, a constant presence that connected everyone. At the center of this religious web was the powerful concept of the afterlife. This was not a belief reserved for a select few priests or nobles. It was a universal truth that united all Egyptians, providing a shared purpose and a common understanding of their place in the universe. The gods they worshipped were deeply involved in this process. Osiris, king of the underworld, Anubis, guide of souls. Both played crucial roles in the journey of the dead. Their stories and powers gave shape and meaning to what happened after death. The Egyptians believed that a proper burial was absolutely essential. It was the first and most critical step in securing a place in the afterlife. Without the correct rituals and a protected tomb, the soul could be lost forever, condemned to a restless and unhappy existence. This is why they invested so much time, effort and resources into their funeral practices. Elaborate tombs, careful preservation through mummification, Wealth of objects buried with the dead, all part of a grand strategy to defeat death and equip the deceased for a new life. The development of writing was a revolutionary moment for these beliefs. It allowed ideas to be written down, standardized and shared more widely than ever before. Local traditions, spoken myths, could now be recorded in powerful texts. Sacred writings inscribed on tomb walls, papyrus scrolls and coffins acted as guidebooks for the dead. They contained spells, prayers and maps to help the soul navigate the dangers of the underworld. Writing the texts was itself a magical act, giving them power in the spiritual realm. These afterlife texts became a cornerstone of funerary culture. They provided a detailed script for the soul's journey. Pyramid texts, earliest for royalty. Coffin texts, available to more people. Book of the Dead, magical protection for those who could afford it. These texts reveal deep anxiety about the afterlife, but also incredible ingenuity, ensuring a safe arrival in paradise. The journey to the afterlife, as imagined by the ancient Egyptians, was far from simple. It was a difficult and hazardous voyage through a complex spiritual landscape known as the Duat, or the underworld. This realm was filled with terrifying demons, strange obstacles, and gates guarded by fearsome beings. The deceased soul would have to face a series of trials and tests to prove their worthiness. They could not make this journey alone. They relied on the knowledge contained within their funerary texts, which provided the secret names and magic spells needed to pacify the guardians and overcome the dangers that lay in wait for them at every turn. The climax of this perilous journey was the final judgment. This dramatic event took place in the Hall of Two Truths, presided over by the god Osiris. Here, the heart of the deceased, which the Egyptians believed was the seat of intelligence and memory, was weighed on a giant set of scales. It was weighed against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was heavy with sins, it would be devoured by a terrifying monster called Amit, and the soul would cease to exist forever. This was the ultimate fear for an Egyptian, not just death, but total annihilation. However, if the scales balanced, it meant the deceased had lived a righteous life. They would be declared true of voice and be granted entry into the afterlife. This was not a return to their old life on earth, it was something far better. A rebirth into a perfect eternal existence. The soul would be reunited with its preserved body, the mummy, and become a blessed spirit. They would live on in a paradise known as the Field of Reeds, or Seket Aru. This was an idealized version of Egypt, a land of endless harvests, beautiful waterways, and joyful reunions with loved ones who had gone before them. This promise of a glorious rebirth was the ultimate goal. It was the powerful motivation behind the pyramids, the mummification, and the complex rituals that defined so much of ancient Egyptian culture. Their entire system of belief was designed to transform the terrifying finality of death into a hopeful new beginning. It was a testament to their desire for justice, their belief in cosmic order, and their unwavering conviction that life, in its best and most perfect form, was meant to last for eternity. To secure their place in the eternal paradise, the ancient Egyptians developed elaborate funeral practices, each step designed to protect and guide the soul on its perilous journey. At the heart of these rituals stood the tomb, a sacred home for the deceased's body and a gateway to the afterlife. Early rulers were buried in simple underground chambers, but as beliefs evolved, so did their monuments. The majestic pyramids of the Old Kingdom rose from the desert sands, serving not only as tombs, but as engines of resurrection. Their shape, pointing skyward, symbolized a staircase to the heavens. Lavishly decorated walls, hidden passages, complex traps, all worked together to defend against grave robbers and spiritual threats alike. Inside these tombs, the Egyptians placed everything the soul might need: food, clothing, amulets, shabtis, tiny servant figurines. But perhaps the most vital tools were the afterlife texts. The earliest of these, the pyramid texts, inscribed on the walls of royal tombs over 4,000 years ago. These spells and prayers were reserved for the pharaohs, helping them navigate the dangers of the Duat and join the gods. As time passed, these sacred writings evolved. The coffin texts appeared, expanding access to powerful magic beyond royalty to nobles and high officials. Later still, the famous Book of the Dead emerged, a collection of spells written on papyrus scrolls, tucked beside the mummy in its sarcophagus. These texts provided step-by-step instructions, how to avoid pitfalls, recite the right words, and win the favor of gods and guardians. Each new generation added their own prayers and spells, reflecting changing hopes and fears. In this way, the afterlife text became a living tradition, one that shaped Egyptian culture for millennia. Tombs, rituals, sacred writings. Together they formed a protective shield, ensuring the journey to the field of reeds would not end in darkness, but in everlasting light. Across the millennia, the ancient Egyptians penned their hopes for eternity in ink and stone. Their funerary texts, more than mere words, became lifelines for the soul's voyage beyond death. Among these, the Book of the Dead stands as the most renowned. Unfurled on delicate papyrus, its spells and illustrations served as a passport, guiding the deceased through the shadowy corridors of the Duat, the underworld. Each scroll was unique, tailored to the individual's journey, filled with prayers, passwords, magical instructions to outwit dangers and win the favor of Osiris, judge of the dead. But the Book of the Dead was just one chapter in Egypt's sacred literature. Deep within royal tombs, the walls blossomed with the books of the netherworld. These cosmic maps charted the sun god Ra's nightly journey through 12 perilous hours of darkness. Their cryptic illustrations and hymns were reserved for pharaohs, depicting monstrous guardians, fiery lakes, the rebirth of the sun, an allegory for the king's resurrection and triumph over chaos. High above, on the ceilings of tombs, another genre unfurled, the books of the sky. These texts, like the Book of Nut, traced the goddess arching overhead, swallowing the sun at dusk, birthing it anew at dawn. They offered a celestial perspective, promising that, like the sun, the soul, too, could rise again. Each tradition offered a different map, a unique vision of the afterlife's challenges and rewards. Together they reflected Egypt's evolving beliefs that immortality was not guaranteed, but earned through knowledge, righteousness and ritual. As we gaze upon the faded ink of papyrus scrolls, the vibrant frescoes of tomb walls, the star-studded ceilings of ancient burial chambers, we glimpse a civilization obsessed with guiding its dead, not into oblivion, but toward a luminous eternity. Their texts were more than guides. They were promises, etched in word and image, that the journey would not end in darkness, but in the everlasting light of the field of reeds. In the shadowed silence of Egyptian tombs, the quest for eternity took tangible form through the intricate art of mummification, an extraordinary ritual, both scientific and sacred. To the ancient Egyptians, the body was the vessel of the soul, and its preservation was vital for a successful journey into the afterlife. The process began soon after death. Specialist embalmers, often priests, washed the body and recited prayers to purify it. The most critical step followed. The removal of internal organs, liver, lungs, stomach, intestines were carefully extracted and placed within canopic jars. Canopic jar lids shaped as protective deities. These jars were more than containers. They symbolized guardianship over the vital essence of the deceased. The heart, thought to be the seat of emotion and intelligence, was usually left inside the body, destined to be weighed against the feather of Maat in the Hall of Judgment. The brain, considered less important, was removed and discarded. Next, the body was packed in natron, a natural salt, and left to dry for 40 days. Once desiccated, the embalmers wrapped the body in countless linen strips, inserting amulets between layers for protection. Each wrapping was accompanied by spells and incantations, invoking the god's favor and shielding the soul from harm. But mummification was only part of the journey. The tomb itself became a portal to the afterlife, filled with offerings, bread, beer, fruits, meats, jars of wine. Statues of servants called shabti were placed to work for the deceased in the next world. Jewelry, clothing, treasured possessions surrounded the body, reflecting a belief that the afterlife mirrored earthly existence, complete with joys and necessities. Priests played a crucial role, performing the opening of the mouth ceremony, ensuring they could breathe, speak, and eat in the world beyond. These rituals and offerings were more than tradition, they were acts of devotion and hope. Every careful preparation echoed a profound faith that, with the right rites, the soul would awaken, thrive, and find peace in the lush fields of eternity. In this sacred process, the Egyptians sought not just to preserve the body, but to guarantee the soul's triumphant passage through the mysteries of death into the promise of everlasting life. As the tomb doors sealed and offerings settled into silence, the true journey of the soul began. A voyage mapped in sacred texts and painted on the walls of eternal chambers. In ancient Egyptian belief, death was not an end but a crossing, a passage from the living to the afterlife. Guided by spells from the Book of the Dead, the soul, the Ba, set out on its perilous journey. First it crossed the celestial Nile, ferried by the divine boatman. The river marked the threshold between mortal life and the world beyond. On the far shore, the soul entered the Duat, the underworld. Darkness and danger reigned. The Duat was a labyrinth of gates and guardians, rivers of fire and fearsome beasts. Each obstacle was a test. Gatekeepers demanded secret knowledge or a protective spell. Funerary texts, inscribed and recited, were the soul's only guide. At the heart of the Duat awaited the Hall of Judgment presided over Osiris. The soul's heart was placed upon a golden scale and weighed against the feather of Maat. Anubis watched with impartial eyes, while Thoth recorded the verdict. If the heart was pure, the soul passed to the field of reeds, a paradise like earthly life. There the soul, reunited with loved ones, toiled in abundance and basked in eternal peace. If the heart was heavy with sin, Amit devoured it, and the journey ended in oblivion. Through these stages, crossing trial judgment, the Egyptians imagined a spiritual odyssey. Each peril and each prayer reflected a hope. With devotion, wisdom, and the favour of the gods, the soul could transcend death and awaken in the afterlife. With every tomb painting and funerary text, the ancients immortalized this voyage, a testament to their quest for immortality and their belief that the soul's story had only just begun. In the shadowed halls of the afterlife, beneath star-strewn ceilings and eternal columns, the soul faced its most crucial trial, the judgment of the dead. Here, in the awe-inspiring Hall of Judgment, the fate of every soul was decided, an event watched over by the mightiest deities of the Egyptian pantheon. At the heart of the hall, Osiris, lord of the afterlife, sat upon his golden throne, shrouded in regal linen and crowned with the white and red of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Before him, the scales of justice gleamed in the half-light, a symbol of perfect balance and truth. Anubis, the jackal-headed guardian of the dead, guided the trembling soul forward. With careful hands, Anubis placed the soul's heart, believed to be the seat of memory, conscience, and emotion, on one side of the scale. On the other side rested the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and cosmic order. The moment was sacred and still. As the scales tipped, Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods, recorded every detail with unerring precision, his papyrus scrolls capturing the soul's fate for eternity. Watching nearby, Maat herself stood serene, her feather a radiant beacon of justice. But lurking at the foot of the scales was Amit, the fearsome devourer, her form part lion, hippopotamus, and crocodile, the three most dangerous beasts of Egypt. Her jaws parted in anticipation, ready to consume any heart weighed down by sin, dooming the soul to oblivion. If the heart balanced with Maat's feather, if the soul had lived with honesty, compassion, and respect for the gods, the path to the field of reeds opened. There eternal joy awaited. But if the heart was heavy with wrongdoing, Amit devoured it, and the soul was erased from existence, lost forever. This divine judgment was not only a test of deeds, but a measure of the soul's harmony with truth and order. For the ancient Egyptians, the weighing of the heart was both a warning and a hope. a reminder that every act in life echoed in eternity, and that the gods watched with wisdom and mercy. With each judgment, the Egyptians reaffirmed their most sacred belief, that to live justly was to be worthy of immortality, and that the ultimate reward or punishment awaited in the halls beyond death. Beyond the Hall of Judgment, where the fate of each soul was weighed with divine precision, lay another formidable trial, the Lake of Fire. In the ancient Egyptian imagination, this was no ordinary body of water. It was a churning, fiery expanse, its surface rippling with flames, annihilate, transform. For those souls whose hearts had not found perfect balance, the Lake of Fire was a place of dread and destruction. Here the unrighteous risked utter obliteration, their very essence consumed by the scorching waters, as punishment for a life lived in discord with Maat. This was the ultimate threat, the end of the soul's journey, the erasure of identity for all eternity. Yet the Lake of Fire was more than a pit of punishment. It was also a crucible of purification. Some souls, though burdened by imperfection, could endure the flames and emerge cleansed, their transgressions burned away by the fire's purifying touch. In this trial by fire destruction renewal, the soul that survived the lake's ordeal was transformed, purified, reborn, worthy to continue its journey toward immortality. Fire itself held deep mythological significance for the Egyptians. It was a force of chaos, danger, light, regeneration. In sacred texts, fire was invoked by gods and priests alike to destroy evil, ward off chaos, renew the world at dawn. The Lake of Fire, then, was a testing ground, a place where the soul faced the duality of fire as a threat to the unworthy, as a promise of renewal for those who could endure. Ultimately, the Lake of Fire was not just a symbol of fear, but of hope. It reminded the living that even after death, the path to perfection was possible. The fires of trial could lead to spiritual rebirth. For the ancient Egyptians, the soul's journey was never truly over. It was a continual process of testing transformation, the pursuit of eternal harmony with the divine. After the soul has emerged from its trials, purified by fire, judged by the gods, and found worthy, it enters the long-awaited paradise of Sekhet Aru, the field of reeds. To the ancient Egyptians, this was the ultimate reward, a realm of eternal abundance, peace and joy. Sekhet Aru was imagined as a vast, sunlit expanse of fertile fields bordered by tranquil waterways, mirroring the lush banks of the Nile in its most perfect form. Here golden crops grew tall, and the air shimmered with the promise of endless harvests. Tomb paintings and sacred texts depict this paradise as an idyllic landscape, a place where the soul could plough fields that never failed, gather fruit that never spoiled, and rest beneath palms that never withered. But Sekhet Aru was more than just a land of plenty. It was a place of reunion and restoration. Loved ones long departed awaited each other, families reuniting in joy, friends and ancestors greeting the newly arrived soul. In this paradise, all suffering and sorrow were left behind. The worthy would dwell alongside the gods and the blessed dead, sharing in feasts, music and laughter for all eternity. For ancient Egyptians, Sekhet Aru embodied the highest hope, that a life lived in harmony with Maat, the cosmic order, would be rewarded with everlasting happiness. The field of reeds was not a distant, abstract concept. It was a vivid vision of fulfillment, a promise painted on tomb walls and written into the Book of the Dead. In Sekhet Aru, the journey of the soul found its perfect conclusion. Here, eternal life was not simply endless existence, but a state of harmony, joy and reunion. A reflection of everything the Egyptians cherished about life, made immortal. For them, the field of reeds was a testament to the power of hope, the beauty of the afterlife, and the enduring human longing for happiness beyond the horizon of death. In the vast and sun-scorched landscape of Upper Egypt, across the timeless waters of the Nile, from the modern city of Luxor, lies a testament to one man's monumental ambition. Here, on the Theban necropolis, stands the ruin of a temple so grand, so colossal in its conception, that it was designed to last for an eternity. This is the Ramesseum, the great mortuary temple of Pharaoh Rameses II. Known to the ancient Egyptians as the House of a Million Years of Usermatre Setepenre, that unites with Thebes the city and the domain of Amun, it was more than just a place of worship. It was a declaration of power, a symbol of divine kingship, and a machine for ensuring the pharaoh's eternal life and legacy among the gods. Today, what remains of the Ramesseum is a hauntingly beautiful skeleton of its former self, a sprawling complex of fallen columns, shattered statues, and weathered walls. Yet even in its state of decay, the sheer scale of the site is breathtaking, leaving visitors to wonder at the incredible engineering and artistic skill of its creators. The temple was not built in isolation. It was part of a sacred landscape dedicated to the afterlife, surrounded by the tombs of queens and nobles in the Valley of the Queens and the Valley of the Nobles. Its purpose was to serve the cult of the deified Rameses II, ensuring that his name and his deeds would be remembered and celebrated for all time. The name Ramesseum itself is a modern one, coined by the French Egyptologist Jean-François Champollion. Before Champollion, Greek visitors like the historian Diodorus Siculus referred to it as the tomb of Ozymandias. This connection would later inspire one of the most famous poems in the English language. The temple complex was a bustling hub of activity. It included vast granaries, workshops, and a well-regarded library or scriptorium. The Ramesseum was a city in miniature, dedicated to sustaining the memory of one of history's most powerful rulers. The location of the Ramesseum on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes was no accident. For the ancient Egyptians, the west was the land of the setting sun, the realm of the dead, and the gateway to the afterlife. It was from here that his spirit would rise each morning with the sun, god Ra, reborn and rejuvenated to traverse the heavens. Rameses II, often called Rameses the Great, understood the power of propaganda and architecture like no other. Ascending to the throne around 1279 BC, he reigned for an astonishing 66 years. He was a warrior king, a prolific builder, and a master of self-promotion. The Ramesseum was perhaps his most personal project. Every surface was covered with reliefs depicting his military victories, his piety towards the gods, and his divine right to rule. The temple's primary function was to facilitate the royal mortuary cult. Daily rituals were performed by a dedicated priesthood to honor the deified Rameses. These ceremonies were essential for maintaining cosmic order. Maat. Join us as we step into the world of Rameses the Great and unveil the mysteries of his lost temple, the magnificent Ramesseum. The construction of the Ramesseum was an undertaking of epic proportions, a project that required immense resources, meticulous planning, and an army of skilled artisans and labourers. The chief architect, Penri, and his team would have first created detailed plans on papyrus scrolls, mapping out every pylon, courtyard, and column with mathematical precision. The builders then had to contend with the chosen site on the floodplain of the Nile. To prevent the temple from being inundated, the entire structure had to be built on a massive raised stone platform. Quarrying the vast quantities of sandstone from Gebel el-Silsila and transporting massive blocks of granite from Aswan was a logistical masterpiece. The entire construction process was a symphony of human effort, all orchestrated to realize the pharaoh's grand blueprint for eternal life and everlasting glory. As one approached the Ramesseum from the east, the first feature to dominate the view would have been the first pylon. Its outer face was covered in magnificent reliefs depicting Rameses II's military prowess. Beyond the first pylon lay the first courtyard. This smaller palace, attached directly to the temple, allowed the pharaoh to reside within his own sacred complex during important religious festivals. The most dramatic feature of this courtyard was undoubtedly the shattered remains of a colossal statue. Carved from a single block of Aswan granite, it is estimated to have stood over 17 meters tall. This was the famous Ozymandias that inspired Percy Bysshe Shelley's poem. Passing through the second pylon, one enters the second courtyard. Osiride statue columns, Rameses II as Osiris. These statues show the pharaoh deified and resurrected. Visitors ascend a short flight of stairs and enter the great hypostyle hall, a forest of stone, 48 massive papyrus-formed columns, shafts of ethereal light across the central aisle. Reliefs covered every surface. The reliefs form a stone encyclopedia of ritual. The hall acted as a transitional sacred zone between the semi-public courtyards and the utter holiness of the sanctuary beyond. Beyond the hall, smaller, intimate chambers, astronomical room, sanctuary at the westernmost end of the axis. The cult statue of the deified Rameses was housed here, receiving daily offerings, at the very heart of his eternal home. To understand the magnificent obsession behind the Ramesseum, we must first meet its maker, Rameses II. Groomed from youth by his father, Seti I, he was appointed Prince Regent as a teenager, learning the arts of statecraft, war and ceremony at the very heart of power. When Seti died, around 1279 BC, Rameses ascended the throne with boundless energy and towering ambition. His purpose was unmistakable: to eclipse the achievements of all who came before him, to bind his name to eternity, and to fuse royal power with divine favour in stone, ritual and memory. The defining crucible of his reign was the Battle of Kadesh. In relief and inscription, Rameses stands alone in his chariot, the god Amun at his side, turning the tide by courage and divine aid. From these scenes of thunder and dust, the narrative flows into stone, his true, enduring victory. As master builder, he filled Egypt with works on a colossal scale: pylons and courtyards, avenues of statues, hypostyle halls, dense as forests. At the Ramesseum, architecture became a proclamation. The landscape itself enlisted to broadcast the pharaoh's might, piety, and rightful rule. In his temples, Rameses appears among the gods as their equal, a living embodiment of divine kingship. Beside him, his principal wife, Nefertari, the most beautiful of them all, was elevated as Hathor incarnate, sharing in the aura of sanctity and rule. Over the decades, his image multiplied, his deeds engraved, his cult sustained. He reigned for 66 years and lived beyond 90. To the ordinary Egyptian, he must have seemed immortal. And so, through ritual and stone, Rameses the Great fashioned the illusion, and perhaps the experience, of eternity. Among the many treasures of the Ramesseum, none captures the imagination like the colossal statue that once ruled the first courtyard. Now it lies in magnificent ruin, shattered limbs, fallen drums, and wind-worn features adrift in sun and dust. Even in this broken state, The scale awes the spirit. The slow decline began before the end of the New Kingdom as power shifted and the rhythms of devotion faltered. Year after year, the Nile's inundation lapped at the temple's foundations. Then one or more earthquakes likely shook Thebes, toppling colossi and bringing great roofs down in thunder. In the centuries that followed, the semi-abandoned Ramesseum became a quarry for ready-cut stone. During the Coptic era, many reliefs were defaced, faces and gods chiselled away, leaving pitted walls that still bear the scars of changing faith. Rediscovery gathered pace in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The strongman engineer Giovanni Belzoni came with a singular aim: to remove the colossal head of Rameses. Its journey to London and arrival at the British Museum in 1818 caused a sensation and stirred the imagination of Percy Bysshe Shelley. His Ozymandias caught the irony perfectly: boastful words, a broken giant, and around it the boundless sands. Today, archaeologists return with science and care. Excavations have revealed granaries, bakeries and workshops, the infrastructure of a living cult complex. Drones map the plan from above. Photogrammetry and three-dimensional laser scanning render the temple as point clouds and precise meshes. In these digital models, architecture re-emerges and conservation finds its guide, so that what time has taken, knowledge may yet preserve. The ruins of the Ramesseum teach us a profound and timeless lesson about the nature of power and the passage of time. It is the very lesson captured by Shelley in his sonnet on Ozymandias. And yet today his colossal statue lies shattered, his courtyards are silent, and his temple is a colossal wreck, slowly being reclaimed by the desert sand from which it was raised. Yet there is another, more hopeful lesson. While the physical structure has decayed, the ideas, stories and artistry of the Ramesseum have survived. Today, the Ramesseum is more than an archaeological site. It is a living space for dialogue between the past and the present. Ultimately, Rameses II succeeded in his quest for a form of immortality. He lives on in the historical record, and most vividly in the public imagination. The great House of a Million Years continues to fulfill its purpose not by granting a pharaoh eternal life, but by giving humanity an eternal place to ponder its own past. Today, the Ramesseum stands not only as a monument to ancient Egypt, but as a vital part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site known as Ancient Thebes, with its necropolis. This designation recognizes the outstanding universal value of the Ramesseum and its surrounding landscape, a testament to the achievements of one of the world's greatest civilizations. Ancient Thebes, with its necropolis, includes not only the Ramesseum, but also the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, the Temple of Luxor, the Temple of Karnak, and countless tombs and monuments. The global community's commitment to protect and preserve these treasures ensures that their stories, artistry and mysteries will endure for generations to come. The Ramesseum stands as a beacon of humanity's shared heritage, a place where the echoes of the ancient world inspire wonder, reflection, and a sense of connection across time. In the golden sands of Egypt's West Bank, ancient Thebes, with its necropolis, emerges as a tapestry of centuries of devotion, ambition, and reverence for the afterlife. Among its sprawling wonders, the Ramesseum rises as a central heartbeat, a monumental link between the living city and the sacred realm of the dead. Thebes was more than a city. It was the spiritual and political epicenter of ancient Egypt, a place where pharaohs sought to immortalize their names and secure their passage to eternity. Its towering columns, intricate reliefs and colossal statues were designed to bridge earth and heaven, connecting the divine with the mortal. Surrounded by the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, and the temples of Luxor and Karnak, the Ramesseum's presence is both commanding and connective. It stands as a storyteller, its walls echoing the triumphs of an empire and the timeless quest for legacy. The temple's alignment with the landscape, its proximity to royal tombs, and its enduring artistry speak to its unique role, a guardian at the crossroads of history, culture, and spirituality. Today, as visitors wander through its silent halls, the Ramesseum invites us to reflect on the shared dreams and enduring mysteries of ancient Thebes. It reminds us that within the necropolis, every stone, inscription and shadow is part of a greater whole, a living testament to humanity's eternal dialogue with the past. The Ramesseum is more than a relic. It is the vibrant heart of ancient Thebes, pulsing with stories that will inspire generations yet to come. As dawn breaks over the timeless desert, the golden age of ancient Egypt unfurls before our eyes, an era shaped by the unyielding will and vision of Rameses II. Under his rule, Egypt reached the zenith of its power, stretching from the Mediterranean to the heart of Nubia. The Nile glitters like a ribbon of life, and the horizon opens upon a realm bound together by ambition, faith, and the promise of eternity. The land thrived, its cities alive with the bustle of trade, the hum of artisans, and the laughter of children along the Nile's fertile banks. Sweeping across the horizon, the temples of Luxor and Karnak rise in splendor, their forests of columns soaring skyward in silent tribute to the gods and the greatness of their king. Streets teem with life. Priests in white linen chant sacred hymns, scribes record the annals of glory, and merchants display treasures from distant lands. At the heart of this vibrant civilization stands the Ramesseum, not merely a house of remembrance, but a living monument to the pharaoh's boundless ambition. Its colossal statues and intricate reliefs come alive, scenes of victory, of festival, of offerings and royal decrees. Here, Rameses is immortalized not just as a conqueror, but as a patron of the arts, a builder of dreams, a leader whose vision shaped the destiny of nations. The Ramesseum's halls echo with the footsteps of priests, the prayers of supplicants, and the celebrations of a people united in hope and pride. It is a canvas upon which the Golden Age is painted, every stone a testament to triumph, every inscription a whisper of immortality. As we gaze upon the Ramesseum in its glory, we are reminded that this was more than a temple for the dead. It was a beacon for the living, a rallying point for a civilization at its height, and an enduring symbol of the timeless dialogue between mortals and the divine. In the shadow of its mighty pillars, the spirit of Rameses II lingers still, inviting us to remember a time when Egypt was the world's beating heart, a time when a single man's legacy became the measure of eternity.